Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're immersing ourselves in a really fascinating source text. It's focused entirely on personal renewal, a powerful exploration called Becoming the Person You Needed. We're going to try and pull out the clearest, most essential insights on healing, self-love, and, the process of growth itself.
Which the source argues is profoundly misunderstood, actually. And it's such a vital discussion because the source, it immediately challenges that standard self-help narrative we see everywhere. It offers a kind of shortcut, maybe, to understanding this massive paradox.
What's the paradox exactly?
Well, it's that we spend years, literally years sometimes, trying to fix the person we think is broken or, striving to invent some completely flawless new version of ourselves.
That quest for perfection. It's just exhausting, isn't it?
Totally.
But the core idea here, the revelation, is that the real work, the foundational stuff, it isn't actually about fixing or inventing. It's more about returning home, becoming the person you always needed.
Exactly. That ultimate protector, that comfort, that safe space you might have yearned for when you were younger, maybe more vulnerable.
That perspective feels revolutionary. It just reframes the whole goal.
It does. The goal shifts. It's not about some future attainment. It's about present self-parenting, really, acceptance. And what's fascinating, I think, is how the source really forces us to differentiate.
Differentiate between what?
Between the glossy, filtered aesthetic of transformation, the Instagram perfect wellness journey, and the quiet, often messy truth of actual internal growth.
Ah, okay. You nailed the hook there. That aesthetic trap is everywhere. The text wants us to get that healing isn't just the absence of pain, right? Or like instantly becoming productive again?
Absolutely not. And the source gives us this profound reframe on damage itself, on our scars. It reminds you that your scars, they aren't monuments to failure.
What are they then?
They're proof, indisputable proof. Proof that you survived what once tried to break you. And just carrying that knowledge, I made it through that, I can make it through this too, well, that's the bedrock of genuine inner strength.
Okay, so let's unpack that difference then. The aesthetic versus the truth. Starting with what healing really looks like. Because we are conditioned, I think, to picture healing as, soft lighting, perfect routine.
Gentle music, organized self-care shelves.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's precisely the trap the text warns us about. Healing is often not picturesque. It looks like crying, maybe uncontrollably, on a random Tuesday evening, just because a smell or a song triggered something forgotten.
Right.
It's messy, it's definitely nonlinear, and it hardly ever sticks to some neat 5-step plan. If you go in expecting this serene, predictable process, you're basically setting yourself up for disappointment when reality hits.
And the source mentions one of the most difficult, definitely non-aesthetic parts of healing is self-forgiveness.
Oh, it's fundamental, and it requires deep, sometimes painful honesty. You have to forgive yourself for the ways you tried to survive in the past.
Like what specifically?
Forgiving yourself for staying in situations maybe longer than you should have, for trusting the wrong people, perhaps, for not seeing red flags, and crucially, forgiving yourself for consistently ignoring your own essential needs. That's a big one.
But I can imagine someone listening might think, okay, if I'm constantly forgiving myself for past mistakes, how do I make sure I'm not just, letting myself off the hook?
Yeah.
Or preventing accountability for the future. Does the source talk about that?
That's a really important distinction, yes.
Yeah.
The source isn't saying excuse the action. It's advocating for releasing the cruelty you direct at yourself afterwards. The practice is learning how to stop abandoning yourself when you make a mistake.
Right.
So accountability, in this view, isn't self-punishment. It's making the choice that feels right now internally, which often means setting a firmer boundary for next time. The self-forgiveness is like the emotional reset that makes building that practical boundary possible.
That totally reframes accountability, moving it from punitive to, protective.
Precisely.
Speaking of pressure,
Yeah.
the source highlights the intense societal demand we face to just rush this whole thing, get over it faster.
Oh, we've all seen that, haven't we? There's this incredible drive to turn pain into productivity, grief into, inspiring content, raw lessons into easily digestible quotes for social media.
Yeah, the pressure to immediately monetize your trauma or weaponize your suffering for engagement.
Exactly.
It's that demand for the instant silver lining. If you don't pull out the perfect, profound life lesson from your pain, you somehow failed the experience. It turns recovery into another competition.
Right. And the radical counterpoint the source offers is, I think, such a breath of fresh air. It argues that sometimes the bravest act of healing looks like doing Well, absolutely nothing.
Nothing.
Just resting, breathing, just being, without needing lessons or quotes or desperately seeking that silver lining. It's about giving yourself permission to just exist in the truth of how you feel right now.
Wow. That quiet permission to just be without performing, that feels revolutionary in our hyper-productive world.
Yeah.
Just slowing things down.
It really is.
Okay, let's shift focus a bit, though. Let's talk about self-love, another concept that gets inflated, often performative. The source gives a definition of real self-love that's refreshingly quiet.
Yeah, it describes real self-love as quiet. It doesn't need the external validation. It doesn't need to be shouted from the rooftops or, proven to anyone online. It's more like an internal ecosystem you tend to, a private set of rules about how you engage with your own mind, your own emotions.
Okay, so if it's an ecosystem, what are the signs of a healthy one? What does that quiet self-love actually sound like inside our heads, especially with our internal dialogue?
Well, the text really emphasizes that self-love is defined mostly by how you talk to yourself when absolutely no one else is listening, and maybe just as important, how patient you are with yourself when you inevitably make mistakes, big or small. Yeah, if your immediate reaction to stumbling is like rage or really sharp cynicism towards yourself, that ecosystem is probably struggling.
And this is where the source gives that beautiful, really memorable instruction. Giving yourself the same empathy you'd automatically give a child.
That analogy is so key because the source understands that deep down there's a part of you that's still wounded, right? Still reacting from a place where it learned to feel unsafe. And that inner child needs patience, not some impossible standard of immediate perfection or maturity.
It makes sense. You wouldn't scream at a 5-year-old for messing up a math problem.
Exactly. You'd calmly show them how to fix it. That's the kind of patience we need with ourselves.
So this brings us to a crucial balance then. Because self-love often gets confused with just constant, almost forced positivity. But the text talks about something far more nuanced, gentle honesty.
Gentle honesty. Yeah, it's about telling yourself the absolute truth about your situation, maybe your shortcomings or the hard work that's needed ahead. And this is the key, doing it without any cruelty.
Without the harsh inner critic jumping in.
Right. It means acknowledging, okay, yes, that was a mistake and it hurt. But you are inherently worthy of learning from it and we'll try again. It's firm but kind.
And that gentle honesty allows for, well, complexity, necessary boundaries, coexistence, this great idea that you can hold seemingly opposite truths at the same time.
Precisely. You can love yourself deeply and still want better for yourself. You can forgive yourself for past mistakes and still set really firm boundaries for the future. You can rest and still be growing.
They aren't mutually exclusive.
Not at all. If you define self-love as arriving at some state of perfection, you're doomed to fail. But if you define it as this continuous, patient practice, well, then you've already succeeded just by trying.
Okay, so if healing needs this kind of radical self-parenting and self-forgiveness, what does the transformation, the growth actually look like? The source reframes growth completely, doesn't it? Away from that new idea.
It really does. The text basically calls that new you definition aspirational fiction. It suggests that growth isn't really about becoming someone totally novel. It's actually a profound act of remembrance.
Remembrance, like remembering the past.
Not just the past, but remembering who you were before the world, before society, before comparison maybe, told you who you had to be. It's like returning to your inherent whole self, before the habits of doubting your gut feelings or shrinking yourself took hold.
Okay, now that is really interesting. If growth is remembering, then the process sounds like it's more about subtraction than addition. What are we subtracting? What's the noise we're supposed to get rid of?
The noise is all that accumulated external stuff asserting you weren't enough. That includes, internalized criticisms maybe from childhood, the relentless comparison game fueled by media, and that loud voice of the inner critic that usually grows out of fear.
So unlearning the noise means
Yeah.
what? Catching yourself.
Yeah, catching yourself mid-thought. When you start ranking your worth against someone else's highlight reel, for instance, stopping that process.
It sounds like a complete shift in your internal economy, like what you value.
It absolutely is. The source points to this massive shift in values, choosing peace, inner peace, over the constant frantic need for external validation. It's the deep realization that your inherent worth was never actually something you had to earn.
Through achievements or performance or anything else.
Right. It just is. The whole unlearning process is about accepting that fundamental, unearned worthiness.
So how do we know if this quiet, internal, subtractive kind of growth is actually happening? Because the source says it's slow, it lasts, but you often don't notice it in the big dramatic moments.
Mhm.
We're not looking for fireworks here.
No, definitely not fireworks. The signs are subtle. They're usually rooted in a new behavioral response, often one that becomes almost automatic over time.
Like what kinds of signs?
Well, the source details things like you suddenly notice you react differently to stress. Instead of lashing out, maybe, you pause. You find yourself speaking kindly to yourself without consciously forcing some positive affirmation. Or you choose to walk away from an argument instead of wearing yourself out trying to explain yourself to someone who clearly isn't going to listen anyway.
Ah, it's those small choices, those micro decisions. Choosing quiet over chaos, maybe. Self-protection over needing to be understood by everyone. It's the absence of the old destructive habit.
Exactly that. And so the final measurement for real change, therefore, isn't what your environment looks like. It's not about your job title or your bank account.
So the metric is purely internal.
Precisely. It's not when everything around you magically shifts, but when the way you treat yourself shifts. That self-treatment, that internal relationship, that's the lasting proof that growth has actually taken root and solidified.
Okay, let's try and synthesize this main message then, for you listening. Your job isn't chasing some perfect future self or trying to fix a past broken version of you. Your job is actually, right now, in this moment, to become the comfort, the protector, the safe space for that younger, maybe scared, maybe hopeful version of yourself that still lives inside you.
And that reframing brings such vital reassurance, I think. The source offers this gentle, really necessary truth. You are not fundamentally broken. You're simply blooming in slow motion.
Loomy in slow motion, I like that.
Yeah, you're not behind schedule. There's no external clock that matters here. You are right on time for your own unique becoming.
So the journey really is the practice. And practice is kind of everything.
Hmm.
Healing isn't a race you win. Self-love isn't some milestone you hit and then you're done.
Yeah.
Growth isn't a destination you finally arrive at.
They're all just ongoing, continuous practices of showing up for yourself again and again.
Right.
And if you really embrace that core concept that your worth was never something you had to earn in the first place, this leaves us with a really provocative thought to maybe mull over this week.
Okay, what is it?
If you are already whole right now, just as you are, what specific piece of noise, that internalized criticism maybe, or that constant comparison habit, what specific piece are you ready to consciously try and unlearn this week, just for the sake of choosing peace over validation? Because that is the real work. That's the practice that actually sets you free.